I got uninvited from my own mother's birthday because I didn't look good standing next to my sister's boyfriend. The irony? That boyfriend worked under me. He was my employee. But my father didn't know that when he looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you still plan on coming home, then don't call me your son." 3 weeks later, on my mother's birthday, their house went dark. Power, water, internet, all cut off in one quiet, surgical strike. This is my story. Maybe you'll see a bit of yourself in it. My name's Ryan. I'm 30, living in a quiet town about 40 minutes from Seattle. My days are simple: coffee at sunrise, the morning weather on mute, and a short drive to work. I co-founded a small tech company specializing in sustainable energy, the kind of work most people don't fully understand, including my family. They still imagine me in a garage somewhere, fixing screws and welding pipes. I never bothered to correct them. Explaining things to people who don't want to understand you is a waste of breath. When someone asks about my family, my parents, or my sister Jessica, I usually just smile faintly and say, "It's been a while." That's my whole answer. No drama, no story, because truthfully, there's nothing left to explain. I haven't seen or spoken to them in over 2 years. No calls, no texts, no birthdays, just silence. The kind of silence that starts out awkward, then eventually turns into peace. I used to believe family was everything, that blood meant loyalty, that home meant safety. 2 years ago, that illusion died on my mother's birthday. It started 3 weeks before her celebration. I had just booked time off work and planned a simple trip home. I'd show up early, help with decorations, maybe fire up the grill like I did every year. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to surprise them. So I called home. My father answered on the second ring. "Hey, Dad," I said casually. "I'll be home 2 days early. Need me to grab anything on the way?" At first, his voice was its usual mix of dry and distant, but then it shifted, heavier, hesitant, like he was about to step on something fragile. "Ryan," he said, maybe don't come home this year." I froze for a second, unsure if I'd heard right. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "Jessica's bringing her boyfriend this year. He's someone important, a manager, carries himself well, speaks properly, and your job, well, it's not exactly something we talk about proudly. It's best if you don't come." For a second, I just stood there, mug in hand, coffee going cold. Then I felt my pulse kick in, hard and hot. "What the hell did you just say?" I asked quietly. He didn't stutter. He didn't apologize. His tone went flat, final. "You coming home would embarrass the family. If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." And then, click. The line went dead. I set my phone down slowly. My hands were shaking, my palms slick. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the fridge. His words replayed in my mind like a skipping record. "You'd embarrass the family. Don't call me your father." Every syllable felt carved out of ice. For a moment, I wondered if I'd misheard him. But no, he meant every word. Cold, deliberate, and final. My throat tightened. My jaw clenched. And then it hit me. I'd been paying all their bills for 2 years, quietly. Power, water, internet, everything. Not once did they ask how those lights stayed on. I unlocked my phone, hands trembling, and opened my banking app. I scrolled through months of payments. Electricity, $123.45. Water, $89.50. Internet, $134.99. On repeat. 2 years worth. I went to the bottom and saw the total. $9,842.17. Almost 10 grand. Gone. Without a thank you. Without even acknowledgement. And now apparently I was an embarrassment. As I stared at the endless list of transactions, one thought surfaced. A quiet, bitter question. Has Jessica ever done a fraction of this for them? It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't pride. It was clarity. For the first time, I realized fairness never lived in our home. My sister was the family's golden child, spotlighted in every photo, praised at every dinner, shielded from every storm. Me? I was the afterthought in the corner of the picture, half cropped, half seen. Nobody told me to stand aside. I just learned that was my place. Jessica got the applause, the sympathy, the help. I got silence. She's 2 years older, but the distance between us was never about age. She was the shining promise, the golden daughter my parents bragged about. I was the convenient footnote. Ryan? Oh, he's fine. He works in tech. I think I used to believe if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet, and kept everything running, they'd finally notice. But they never did. Turns out, when you're invisible long enough, people forget you were ever there. 2 years ago, when my mother first called asking for help with bills, her voice had trembled. She said costs were rising and their retirement couldn't keep up. If you could help us, even a little, it would mean a lot, she said. So I did, month after month. I told myself it was temporary, that one day they'd be okay. But the months passed, the bills kept coming, and I kept paying, quietly, faithfully, like some ghost son funding the life of a family who never saw him. Nobody ever talked about stopping the payments. There was no discussion, no plan, no gratitude. Every now and then, I'd ask softly, "Is Jessica helping out at all, Mom?" She'd always dance around it, her words slipping through half-truths and practiced sighs. "Just this month, honey," she'd say. "Your sister will help next time." Or, "Jessica's been covering your father's medical stuff." That's not easy. You know, I'd heard those lines so many times I could repeat them in my sleep. And every time I just smiled and let it pass. Because deep down, I knew none of it was true. So I kept sending the money, almost $400 every month, steady as clockwork. Quietly, reliably. No complaints. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing what I thought was right. Somewhere in me, there was still that boy who believed that being good, being useful, being silent would eventually be enough to earn their love. But now I was the family's shame. When that realization settled in, the room around me felt completely still. I sat there on the couch, phone still in my hand, my mind a blank stretch of white noise. I wasn't angry anymore, not even heartbroken, just done. That's enough, I thought. Without hesitation, I reopened my banking app. I scrolled down to the list of automatic payments, power, water, internet, and canceled them one by one. My fingers moved slowly, deliberately. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. For once, I was choosing myself. A week passed. Then my phone lit up with a familiar name. Mom. Her message was calm, almost sweet. "Hey, dear, the internet bill is due. Can you take care of it?" No mention of what had happened, no apology, just another request. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then placed the phone face down. Not as a statement, not to punish her, but because the first thing she thought to say after everything was a request for money. Not "Are you okay?" Not "Can we talk?" Just "Pay the bill." That silence that followed was heavy, but honest. It said everything words couldn't. 2 weeks later, my father called. I didn't answer. The phone rang until it stopped. Then came a voicemail. His voice was as cold and sharp as ever. "The power company says this month's bill isn't paid." What's going on? No concern, no acknowledgement, not even a memory of what he'd said to me that day, when he'd told me not to call him father, just irritation that his lights were off. I listened once, then turned off the screen and placed the phone down. And that was that. I didn't call back. I didn't explain. I just waited. 3 weeks later, on my mother's birthday, the day I'd been uninvited from, everything played out exactly as I expected. Their celebration was picture perfect. Her favorite roasted chicken, cake from the bakery she loved, relatives gathering around the table, laughter filling the house. Everything was as it should be, except me. At 4 p.m., I was at home, sitting on my couch with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. My phone buzzed. Mom! Her name glowed on the screen. I stared at it for a few seconds, then set it down. A minute later, Dad called. Then Jessica. 3 calls in less than 10 minutes. I didn't answer any of them. Outside, the sky was dull and gray. The kind of cold that doesn't need rain to make you shiver. It just seeps in, quiet and uninvited. I leaned back in my chair and watched the fog smear against the window. Then the messages started coming. First, my mother. Ryan, the power's out. The whole house is dark. Please pay the bill. I read it silently. No reaction, no anger, no satisfaction, just a strange, peaceful emptiness. Years of carrying everyone's weight had left me numb. A few minutes later, my father. No water. We can't cook. Handle it. Now, then Jessica. Internet's down. Guests are arriving. Fix this ASAP. I looked at the clock, 5:12 p.m. 3 weeks ago at this exact time, I had canceled every one of those payments. The day my father told me not to call him dad again, I'd made sure they'd feel exactly what it was like to be cut off, completely. And now on the night they chose to erase me, the house that once shut me out had gone dark. One by one, power, water, internet, all fading exactly as they had asked me to fade. I didn't text back, didn't call, didn't explain. I simply sat there, turning the cold mug slowly in my hands, eyes still fixed on the window. Because the truth had never been clearer. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because there was no one left to carry their burden. By 6 p.m., the calls turned into a storm, not from my family this time, but from the relatives who only ever remembered my name when there was gossip to share. Their messages came fast and furious. You embarrassed your mother in front of everyone. How could you do that on her birthday? Your sister was right. You always ruin things. I read every message without replying, not because silence meant surrender, but because I'd grown tired of justifying myself to people who never cared about the truth. They loved the sound of their own outrage more than the reality behind it. I was just about to put my phone down when the screen lit up again. Aunt Lauren was the only one in the family who ever looked me in the eye and still saw me. She was calling me that evening, video call, through an old app that only she and I still used. Maybe because we were the only ones who still cared to see the other's face when it mattered. I hesitated for a second before answering. The screen lit up, and there she was, standing in that familiar kitchen. Yellow light spilling across the cracked walls I knew like the back of my hand. The sound of forks clinking, forced laughter, the low murmur of small talk. It was all there behind her, but something in the air was off, heavier. She gave me that warm, knowing look, the one she used when she could tell something was wrong. You're not going to pay for it, are you, Ryan? She said softly, testing the waters. I met her gaze. When I spoke, my voice came out low, slow, like I was pulling words from somewhere I'd buried them years ago. You know, Auntie, it was Dad who told me not to come. He said if I showed up, I shouldn't call him my son anymore. She went still. Her eyes shifted, glancing at someone behind her. And then, chaos. I heard my mother's voice first, sharp and breaking through the background noise. Tell him I'm ashamed of him. On my birthday of all days, how could he do this? Then my father's voice followed, hard and dismissive. Oh, for God's sake, it's just a few bills. What kind of man gets petty over money? Then someone else, my uncle maybe, cut in, his tone dripping with pity. Poor Jessica. Having to deal with a brother like that, footsteps shuffled closer to the camera. And then Jessica appeared, perfectly groomed, arms folded, lips curled with irritation. He actually picked up? Mom's been crying all day and he doesn't even care. Seriously, Ryan, no shame at all, I didn't move. I didn't argue, I just watched, silent and still, as if that was the only defense left to me. Then just as I was about to end the call, another face appeared beside hers. A young man in a tailored suit, hair slicked neatly back, eyes darting nervously at the camera. He hesitated before speaking. Hey, boss. I froze. The air in my lungs seemed to stop moving. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. But no, there it was again, clear and cautious. Boss. I leaned forward slightly, my eyes narrowing. Of course, I recognized him now. Hudson Kane, one of our newer hires, transferred recently from the southern branch. We'd exchanged a few emails, a couple of progress reports. I'd signed off on his team's expansion budget just a month ago. And now here he was, Jessica's boyfriend, the man my family thought was someone important. The kitchen behind Aunt Lauren went silent, like someone had sucked the oxygen out of the room. Then I heard it, whispers, confused and rising. "Wait, what did he just call Ryan?" someone said. Another voice followed, half shocked, half panicked. "Boss? Did he say Ryan's his boss?" The murmurs turned into a wave of hushed disbelief. I stayed quiet, didn't confirm, didn't deny, just watched. Hudson straightened up, adjusted his collar, and looked past the camera at everyone in that kitchen. "In case anyone's wondering," he said clearly, "I work at Pacific Terra Tech. Mr. Ryan is one of the company's co-founders. You could have heard a pin drop. Forks froze midair. My father's mouth hung open just slightly. The whole room stood suspended in the kind of silence that only truth can carve. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just gave a small nod, pressed my lips together and said quietly, "Hope your big introduction goes perfectly." Then I ended the call. That night I slept better than I had in years. No restless thoughts, no tightness in my chest. Just peace. Not satisfaction, not revenge. Just the calm that comes when people finally see you for who you really are. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through my blinds. I reached for my phone, checking emails like always. A few project updates, some routine messages, and then a name I didn't recognize. Hudson Kane. I opened it. The first line read, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were Jessica's brother." I sat up a little, curiosity pulling me awake. He continued, "I've always respected you at the company. I didn't expect her to be like that. I'll be ending this relationship. Thank you for not putting me on the spot last night." I let out a quiet exhale, set the phone on my chest, then after a few moments typed my reply slowly, deliberately. "Hudson, that's your choice. I don't expect anyone to make decisions for my sake. Think carefully before you do anything. And for the record, I don't bring family into the workplace." Then I hit send. No second thoughts, no wait. That was enough, because once the truth comes out, you don't need applause. Just silence. Around 10 a.m., while wrapping up a meeting, my phone buzzed again. Jessica. I stared at the name for a few seconds, then declined the call. Not out of anger, not to punish her, just because I'd had enough of apologies that always arrived too late. A few minutes later, her text came in. "I'm sorry, I didn't think Hudson would change like that. You're his boss. If you said something, I'm sure he'd listen. Please talk to him. Ask him to come back." I leaned against the office window, rereading her message. Then I typed my reply, short even, final. "Hudson didn't leave because I told him to. He left because of how you treat people, how you look down on what you don't understand, and how you think you can steer anyone with a soft enough voice." I sent it and slipped the phone back into my pocket, but it buzzed again less than a minute later. "I know I messed up. I'll change. Please believe me, just this once." I read it, sat with it for a while, but nothing moved inside me. Not anger, not forgiveness, just clarity. Because sometimes the real distance between two people isn't measured by the apology. It's measured by when it comes. I deleted the message quietly. Then I turned back to my desk, to my work, to my life. A week later, on a gray Friday afternoon, I came in from the garage and froze at the porch. My parents stood at my doorstep, each clutching a small suitcase, faces weary from travel, eyes hollow from something deeper than exhaustion. For a long moment, no one spoke. I didn't ask why they were here. I already knew. This wasn't a casual visit. This was an arrival with intent. I opened the door and let them in. No hostility, no performance, just quiet civility, the kind you offer when you've stopped expecting anything genuine. We sat in the living room. The tea between us was still steaming when my father spoke first. His voice carried something rare, restraint. He apologized in a tone I barely recognized. My mother joined in softly, saying they'd thought things through, that perhaps they'd gone too far. I didn't interrupt. I'd learned silence often reveals more than words. I wanted to see whether this was the end of something, or the start of a new kind of manipulation. And right on cue, his tone shifted. "We're family, Ryan. Family helps each other. We raised you, sent you to school. Everything you have now, a part of that comes from us, right?" I met his eyes, posture straight, expression unreadable. Then my mother leaned forward, voice low and almost reasonable. If you could maybe send us $2,000 a month, just a little support. It's not much for someone like you, I stared at them. The same two people who once called me an embarrassment, who barred me from my sister's celebration because I didn't fit their picture-perfect image. And now here they were, dressing a financial request in the clothes of affection. $2,000 every month because I was their son. I let out a small, quiet laugh. Not bitter, just the kind you give when something absurd finally makes sense. Their eyes locked on mine, waiting for the nod, for the surrender, but I didn't give it. What about Jessica? I asked. How much will she be contributing? The air tightened. My father glanced at my mother. She hesitated. Your sister's job, it's not stable yet, and after the breakup with Hudson, she's been struggling. Of course, the same old melody, pity disguised as reason. I nodded slowly, then spoke evenly. If Jessica agrees to send you $2,000 a month, I'll match her, dollar for dollar, no more, no less. They froze, unsure whether to take me seriously. I leaned forward slightly. Or, if you want me to handle the full amount, then I'll need it in writing. A legal agreement that once you're both gone, the house becomes mine in full. The silence that followed was thick and unbreathing. Then my father's face darkened. He shot up, slamming his palm against the table, sending tea spilling across the wood. You're setting conditions for your parents? He thundered. We raised you for over 20 years, and now you want to negotiate like this? What kind of life are you living, huh? His rage filled the room, sharp and familiar. I didn't flinch. I just sat there, calm, grounded, hands resting on the armrests. I waited for the echoes of his anger to fade before I stood. My voice was low but steady, the kind of tone that leaves no room for argument. I think you should leave my house. No threat, no anger, just the final line between self-respect and surrender. They didn't argue. Only the faint scrape of their luggage wheels across the floor, the quiet click of the door shutting behind them. Quieter than the noise they left inside me. It's been 2 years since that day. I haven't blocked their numbers, haven't changed my email. I just stopped reaching out. I waited to see if they'd remember me without needing something from me. They never did. No calls, no messages, no birthday wishes, not even a simple, "How are you?" I used to believe time could heal family. Now I know, time only reveals who was never really there to begin with. These days I live quietly. I work, I breathe, I sleep without guilt. The only thing I no longer do is let myself be an emotional ATM, always giving, always emptying, in the name of duty. Because here's what I've learned. Family isn't about blood that demands kindness and calls it love. It's about being valued, not as a wallet, not as a backup plan, not as a safety net for their regrets. And before I end this chapter, I'll ask you something, honestly. Was I wrong to refuse, to say no when they asked for help, even though they're aging, even though they raised me? Maybe I was cold, or maybe, just maybe, I finally learned what self-respect feels like. If my story made you think, leave your thoughts below. I want to know, truly, and if it resonated with you, consider subscribing. There are still many stories like this. Stories that remind us where love ends and self-worth begins. Thank you for staying until the end. Take care of yourself. Until the next story.